Hello everybody, Baloo here, and welcome to Long Thoughts. Usually I go for a half-hour format, but this one's going to be a little shorter because I can't justify talking about myself for a half hour. I thought it would be unfair to ask writers to share themselves with me and you guys if I wasn't willing to do the same. So here's a show about myself and the project. I first saw a slam poet in high school. Taylor Molly got up on stage and read Like Lily, Like Wilson, and some other stuff too, but that's the big one I remember. I was blown away. It was amazing. Here's a grown man standing in front of tons of kids spouting words in his poems that I tried to cut from my grammar every day. I had a teacher that used to get really mad at me when I'd say the word like every third word. And not only was it all right when he did it, it was cool. It was really, really cool. In that moment, poetry went from something I did that was kind of like a brand, a social shackle, into being something I could see carrying me forward and driving me through times when I felt shackled. I went looking everywhere for more. Internet, library, you name it. I found IndieFeed, and IndieFeed was awesome. Poem after poem filled my speakers. Mongo ran an incredible podcast. You guys ever heard of him? Check out IndieFeed, check out the Performance Poetry Preservation Project, and, shameless plug, check out my last podcast, where I had Mongo as the guest. Alas, all good things have to give way to new, different, hopefully still good, things. Mongo has moved on from IndieFeed to his new project, which is wonderful. And absolutely necessary. But I think poetry still needs something like IndieFeed. I think poetry deserves something like IndieFeed, a place for poems and their creators to be heard. After hearing Taylor, poetry was no longer a stuffy compilation of words people rolled their eyes at. It was energetic and in your face, and it was my kind of thing. And that is something that needs to be saved. I remember going home from seeing him in school going, that was really awesome, but there can't be more than that. This guy's got to be like the greatest one-off ever, but he's got to be a one-off. I was a teenager, cut me some slack. But there were tons of them. IndieFeed was a seemingly bottomless plethora of poetry. And as many speaker poems came out of my speakers, from hundreds of people, probably thousands of poems, these astounding voices need to be savored and heard and enjoyed for the wonderful things that they are. And it's just something you can't miss out on, something that needs to be gathered forever. I kind of think that IndieFeed and poetry go together like Gotham and Batman. It's like that. They strengthen each other. This is a project of passion for me. My goal for this podcast is to hear from poets new and I don't need to say old, legendary maybe? Poets like Bob Holman and Taylor Molly and Big Papa E and tons of others I can't remember the name of right now because I'm super excited. Saul Williams, Kristen O'Keefe. If you guys haven't heard Ernie Klein, you should do that. He's the single greatest geek I've ever heard, off the top of my head anyway. And I'd love to hear from them and the local people, the people who are like down the street from me that I don't know about yet. The guys who are 2 towns over, the guys who live in the middle of nowhere and have great stuff, and if we don't capture it and get them to say it, that we'll never know. We will have suffered a loss because we didn't get to hear it. I'd love to hear from all of them, their hopes, their goals, their experiences. There are countless poets all over the world who have created amazing works. I want to celebrate them. The works, yes, but more so the writers behind them. Your average slam poem is around 3 minutes or so. In those 3 minutes, the focus and energy is centered on the piece and not the performer. Poets are poems in themselves, living, breathing poetry with a voice. What's cooler than that? I've been changed by just knowing slam poetry exists. A profound, fundamental, it's never going to go away shift of character. I hope you guys get something positive out of this too. Not necessarily this individual show, this is just me talking, but the podcast in general and slam poetry as a living, breathing thing. Promotion time. Do you write poetry? Promote poetry? Know somebody who does? I would love to hear from you. My email is radiobaloo@gmail.com. That's radio, the apparatus, RADIO, Baloo, like the bear from the Jungle Book, BALOO at gmail.com, COM. As I wrap this up, I'd like to thank those who have supported me in this endeavor. Firstly, there's my wonderful other half who helps me take my manic energy and turn it into viable progress. I would be lost without her. And there are my parents, who are both cheerleaders on the one hand and reality checkers on the other hand. I couldn't have possibly slowed down enough to do something productive without them. Thank you so much. I'm Baloo, and you've been listening to Long Thoughts, the podcast for the poet. Until next time, write strong.